What a lovely way to begin our service today. Thank you all for being here. Good morning. I'm Vicky. You speak back. I love it. I'm Vicky Semones. I'm your host today, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Tacoma, those here in the sanctuary and those joining us online. Our musicians today supporting our day is Terry O'Hara on piano, Benny Yangco on clarinet. Our special guest musician is Karyn and Plonsky. Welcome back. Our intrepid audiovisual team is Erik, Perrohe, and Ronald above the lights. Our practitioners today include Bev Holland on platform and Mona Williams, who's holding high watch or consciousness virtually. Today's message will be given by our guest speaker, Rev KC Taylor, who will be speaking with us online. If you're here want to start in a different place this time. We are a friendly, handshaking, meet and greet community, yet we recognize and respect that not everyone is so gregarious. So if you're here for the first time today, we're glad you've chosen to visit us and we'd like to recognize your being here. So if you're comfortable doing so, why don't you raise your hand and let us welcome you. Thank you so much for coming. Could we make sure that she receives a visitor packet? You have. Perfect. We're a friendly, I've done that. But it can't be overstated. So we have some announcements today. CSL is having an online auction, and I'd like to ask Steve Potts to come up and tell us the status of this, what seems to be a successful event so far.
How's everybody? Good. If you're not, it's your own fault. How about that? Sorry about that. I heard that one time. We're having an auction. If you haven't heard, it's an online auction. My wife and I run a business where we do auctions all the time, and we thought some people approached us to see if we could come up with an auction for the church just for benefit of our fundraising. So it's all almost finalized. And how many of you do not know what an online estate auction is? So everybody knows what it is. Everybody's been to a site. The site is, back in the back, we've got these flyers. So pick up one. It's got the auction site on there. For those of you at home, the auction site is Adams Estate Auctions, all one word.com. It starts Thursday night at 7, that's 7:13, and it starts at 6:30. There are about 100 auctions, 100 lots, probably a little bit more, and some really cool stuff. So not just household, throwaways or anything like that. There's some really nice things. So if you'd like to go on there and just see what it's like, what kind of things, and maybe pick up a couple of items, tell your friends about it. It's going to be the auction site that we use is Adams Estate Sales, and they've been around for a long time here in the Tacoma area. They are also donating their normal fee. So we're not having to pay for any of this. It's all volunteer, and we hope to bring in some money for Ty. So glad you're all here.
Thank you, Steve. And again, that's July 13th through July 20.
Yes, I didn't say that. It starts on Thursday. You can bid any time up until close of the auction on the 13th. 23rd.
Let's have the correct date, the 20th?
20th, yeah.
Okay,
All the way up to the 20th.
very good. We have a new class for you called Infinite You, which is being facilitated by Doug Taylor, who's a practitioner here. The class is offered via Zoom only, and for 6 Wednesday evenings starting July 26th. We think you'll find this class invigorating, whether you're new to science of mind or you've been practicing for years. and you can find more information on this and register for it on the CSL website. And for those online, that's CSL-Tacoma.org. If you're thinking of joining our membership or just want to learn more about CSL teachings, please join Reverend Drew and Laura Lee Bentel on July 23rd after our Sunday service. This is no cost, but please go to the website to register so that they'll know how many people are coming. And I wanted to say just a shout out to Justin and the people that staffed the CSL booth at Pride Day Saturday. Apparently it was a major success. People had a lot of fun, and CSL sponsored our booth there. So it was just a wonderful outing, and I hope you all participated in that. And always in service are our wonderful Tacoma CSL practitioners. They are our spiritual coaches. You can join them in the prayer room at the back of the sanctuary after service for a brief prayer circle. And let's take a moment to remember who we are and what we believe. The Center for Spiritual Living Tacoma is a peaceful, loving, and joyful spiritual community with a shared set of values, principles, and practices. We embody an understanding of our oneness with Source. We are committed to individual transformation and to being a beneficial presence on the planet. Our vision is to create a world that works for everyone. We help empower you to bring your dreams to life, and we do this together through practicing meditation and prayer, offering a spiritual home, teaching universal spiritual principles, giving consciously, living in the present moment, engaging in a life of service, and providing a pathway to peace of mind. Now I have the special treat for us and the pleasure of introducing CSL member and former poet laureate for Tacoma, Lucas Smiraldo, who will read his original poem, Galveston.
Well, first off, our Pride booth was off the hook. I happened to be there, and it was just wonderful. People were coming in. They had the affirmations there for people to be shared, and then there were hidden cookies behind that I noticed, even though they weren't for me. They were baked for our volunteers. It was a wonderful thing. And then before I go on to share about my poem, I wanted to say that two of the items that I have there are flamenco performance shoes that I wore only once in one performance before I officially retired from flamenco. So anyone or a child that is interested in that, they are almost new and gorgeous with the little taps at the end. And then also a huge book that I bought from the Tacoma Art Museum, an essay, photo essay by artist Michael Kenna about Japan. Really austere, beautiful black and white. So there's 100 lots, but just wanted to let you know that those are two of them that will be for sale, and those flamenco boots I'm sure are going to go really fast. I wanted to give a little context. It's not fair to read this poem without giving some context first. I was asked by Puget Sound Revels to do perform a piece in honor of Juneteenth, and for those of you who may or may not know, Juneteenth was the date in which General Granger marched with his troops into Galveston, Texas, to announce the liberation of enslaved people that did not know that they were free until Galveston came, or until Granger came. And there was something about that space, that interstitial space, Galveston, that to me is beyond its historical moment. It's about being in that space of receiving and all the things that must come next. Simultaneously, I was walking with a friend only to learn that a black gallery owner in Seattle, in the Madison Park area, had opened this gorgeous gallery that was for all artists, but was certainly had some of it devoted to black artists who had been summarily harassed on a number of occasions, between folks calling out and actually in the early morning a noose being placed one door over And the only reason it wasn't placed at her door is because she had a camera that was pointing outward. And while that incident is reprehensible, it also is a statement about the existence of racism, both overtly and covertly in our society, that we cannot address if we don't name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a short excerpt from the Seattle Median that explains what the gallery owner has gone through, and then move directly to the poem Galveston. And the message here is not that we stay mired in the horror of that, but that we're engaged and involved in being a part of the solution and naming what is true, and then stepping in ways that we can within our own lives. So I'll start with the article. In 2022, Marissa Spooner-LaDuff opened Domicile, an art gallery and interior design studio in Seattle's Madison Park neighborhood. The gallery is situated between a nail spa and a bookstore in the neighborhood business district. In late January, while taking a break from work, Spooner-LaDuff walked to the nearest restaurant for a bite to eat. Upon returning to her business, she claims that two white men in their 40s stared at her from across the street and said, "We don't want your business here. Go back to where you're from." Since then, she alleges that she has faced serious forms of harassment, both subtle and overt, including being egged and vandalized, as well as verbal abuse from neighboring residents. "I opened my gallery in Madison Park and have dealt with a lot of racial biases, racial comments," says Spooner-LaDuff. "People come in and make comments like, 'Are you always here? Is the owner here?' Or, 'I noticed you keep the place clean while the owners are away. Do you have a cleaning business?" Spooner-LaDuff, a black woman from Louisiana, moved to the Pacific Northwest 2 decades ago and has been a resident ever since. A few weeks after the staring incident, Spooner-LaDuff claims that the manager of the neighboring bookstore approached her and showed her a photo on his cell phone of a noose hanging from his storefront, suggesting it was likely meant for her. Quote, June 19th, 1865, the date Major General Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and delivered General Order No. 3, announcing the end of legalized slavery in Texas. Galveston. People of these United States, how distant is this liberation? How does this dust still collect along the tongues after the battalion has departed and the hoof strikes are echoes now? How do we get us some of that freedom red drank? Will the hibiscus clear our throats? Will we take rumors of our rising for truth? Will we bellow like spring, holler like summer? Will we finally get to breathe us some of that fine, clear moon? Or will we wait at Galveston for the second coming? We live in this land of red velvet, so sweet it moves your shoulders into a perfect smile, along with the tightest knots of the hidden nooses. Concealed twine hung quietly at the early hours along the doorways of civilized business districts in 2023 in a gallery that should be a place of singing. You'll find these songs like blessings everywhere. The perfect garden along the crevice sidewalk, the bold paintings mounted upon the manila walls, the delicate fruit tart that rests on your tongue like a sacrament. There is such beauty in the children of these migrations, and such a gathering of unbreath, of choking supremacy, and its many generations now who will not love the many rhymes of freedom and keep their throats dry like cotton so that they can neither swallow or quaver or trill like the warblers nearby. And still, she, the gallery owner, opens her doors, stretches her walls across these new mountains to the middle ocean and an original coast that laps and welcomes its great nieces and nephews home. Granger's message is still at our outskirts. The Morgans and the saddle horses are restless. The batter is on its gentle rise. And it's time for this entire nation to join the exodus. Galveston is not our final home.
Wow. Thank you so much. Lucas. That was very, very moving and deep. I think that's the kind of poem that one could read every day and get something different out of it.
I have a few copies if people want them.
What I'd like to do now is follow this with a prayer. So I invite you to close your outer eyes with me and just know the truth of our existence. And that is that Spirit is at work. Sometimes it is invisible, but sometimes it comes out loud. Just like yesterday's wonderful celebration here in Tacoma for Pride. I know that that same Spirit that just permeates absolutely everything, permeates ourselves as well. It is here, it is in us and outside of us. We need only ask, we need only accept Spirit's wonderful gifts to move forward in our lives, to move forward, to help others move forward in their lives as well. Because there are things that happen, quote, to us, that we have the opportunity to change in the future. That we have the opportunity to be all that we can be. And I'm just so grateful knowing this truth. I'm so grateful for this gathering, just acknowledging this truth as well. And so I let it go, I let it be, and so it is.
Come and find the quiet center in the crowded life we lead. Find the room for hope to enter. Find the frame where we are freed. Clear the chaos and the clutter. Clear our eyes that we can see. See the things that really matter. Be at peace and simply be. Silence is a friend that claims us, cools the heat and slows the pace. God it is who speaks and names us, knows our being, touches base, making space within our thinking, lifting shades to show the sun, raising courage when we're shrinking, finding scope for faith begun. In the Spirit, let us travel, open to each other's pain. Let our loves and lives unravel to celebrate each space we gain. There's a place for deepest dreaming. There's a time for heart to care. In the Spirit's lively scheming, there is always room to spare.
Today's reading is by Susie Kasim, Rise Up and Salute the Sun. We awaken by asking the right questions. We awaken when we see knowledge being spread that goes against our own personal experiences. We awaken when we see popular opinion being wrong but accepted as being right, and what is right being pushed as being wrong. We awaken by seeking answers in corners that are not popular. And we awaken by turning on the light inside when everything outside feels dark.
This one's a story, so pay attention. This is good. Two fishermen who lived along the Sea of Galilee stood by the shore to cast their nets into an ageless sea. Now Jesus watched them from afar, then called them each by name. It's changed their lives, these simple men, they'd never be the same. Leave all things you have and come and follow me. Now come and follow me. And so he walked along the shore. 'Twas James and John he'd find, and these two sons of Zebedee. Can't read. I need I need new contacts. I'm so sorry. And as he walked along the shore, 'twas James and John he'd find, and these two sons of Zebedee would leave their boats behind. Their work and all they held so dear, they left beside their nets. Their names they'd heard as Jesus called, they came without regret. Leave all things you have and come and follow me, and come and follow me. Oh, Simon, Peter, Andrew, James, and John, beloved one, you heard Christ's call to speak good news revealed to God's own Son. Susanna, Mary, Magdalene, can't see. Susanna, Mary, Magdalene, who traveled with your Lord. You ministered to him with joy, for he is God adored. Leave all things you have and come and follow me, and come and follow me. And you good people, one and all, who'd follow Spirit's way, come leave behind what keeps you bound to trappings of our day, and listen as he calls your name to come and follow near. For still he speaks in varied ways to those his call will hear. Leave all things you have and come and follow me, and come and follow me. Leave all things you have and come and follow me, and come and follow me. Thank you. I'm getting new glasses.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce our guest speaker today, Rev KC Taylor. Sorry about that. Reverend Taylor, who prefers the pronouns they and them, is the senior minister and co-founder of Spirit Uncensored, described as a spiritual playground highlighting the values of choice, faith, and gratitude. They also serve as the office administrator of the Centers for Spiritual Living, the assistant minister at United Life CSL, and a case manager for CSU Youth Services in Oklahoma City. CSU Youth Services is a low-barrier, LGBT+ affirming youth homeless shelter. Prior to Oklahoma City, Reverend Taylor was a TV creative executive at Juvie Productions, which was Viola Davis and Julius Tennant's production company in Los Angeles. Viola Davis is one of my favorite actors. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Tacoma, Reverend Taylor.
Good morning. It is I am so grateful to be with you all and grateful for the opportunity to get to know your center more. Just to give you a little backstory about who I am and how I got here. I was recently hired, as was mentioned in my bio, as the administrative assistant at the Center for Spiritual Living. And it was either my first or second day when Ty sent me an email. I'm pretty sure it was my first day that Ty sent me an email. I don't know what he knew about me from what, but said, hey, would you love to speak at our center? And not only do I jump at the opportunity to speak in any center, but also this center was on my list to connect with, specifically because I am in the process of organizing a spiritual retreat for what it's called Next Gen, for people who are 18 to 35-ish. And that retreat this year will be held in Camp Cedar Ridge in Vernonia, Oregon, which is not too far from CSL-Tacoma. So I wanted to make sure the Tacoma area knew that this was something that was going on so close to the community, especially because there are so few opportunities for people in the 18 to 35-ish demographic in the Center for Spiritual Living to receive this dedicated, intentional support that's been designed in a spiritual experience that has been designed and facilitated by people within their age range. And so many don't have that experience within their own centers. They're often the only one, or are hesitant to walk into a new CSL because they feel like the only one. And I find, in my experience, having attended the Next Gen retreat myself for the first time in 2018 is when I went to the first one, that it gave me the space and freedom to be who I am. The reason I'm showing up in a God is Good t-shirt on a Sunday is because Next Gen really gave me that strength and support in knowing that I get to show up and be my authentic self. And what I've learned is that the more that I do that, the more that I'm celebrated. And I think, that's one of the reasons that I think a lot of us are drawn to the Centers for Spiritual Living, because it is a place where unconditional love and unconditional acceptance are practiced. And there are so few places in the world, specifically in the United States, where that happens. And so I'm so grateful that each one of us is doing the best that we can to show up and be a safe space for everyone. I'm especially grateful to be showing up the day after your demonstration, your experience at the Pride Parade. As a queer person, I am queer, gender non-conforming person. I always am excited to speak and connect with and be a part of spiritual communities that are really advocating for people of all walks of life, all ways of expression, and recognizes the divinity in all of that. So this month, as you all may recall, we are diving into the theme, Speaking Truth to Circumstance. And this theme comes from the Centers for Spiritual Living Global Themes team, and I'm grateful to be a part of that team as well. I am doing so many things. I think that's just kind of a life that I live. But I like right now I have 5 jobs. I think my bio had like 3 of them. But so I have so much going on, but it's all good things. And I'm grateful to have been a part of the Global Thieves team, especially because to me, this group is a perfect representation of what speaking truth to circumstance looks like. That we vision and allow for spiritized vision for the year to come to us, and then separate everything out by month. Each person gets a month to write, and we get to identify what the weekly themes will be. And Reverend David Robinson has been lead of this CSL Global Themes team for the last 2 years. And this month just happens to be his month, Speaking Truth to Circumstance. So last week, Monsters, Inc. was the theme. And this week is Got Me Hypnotized. So we're 2 weeks in a row of Reverend David Robinson really using media, pop culture themes to really highlight what it is that we believe, that we have the opportunity to speak truth to circumstance. And last week, I think, was more about the negative thoughts in our minds, or things that are happening out in the world that help create those negative thoughts, and how to address and deal with those. And this week is this week is Got Me Hypnotized. That's inspired by quotes from a Fleetwood Mac song. And Reverend David really leans into this idea that songs, media really help shape our perception of the world and really make it so that so many of us believe as spirit as separate from us, specifically because the media messages that we receive, that we grow up with, and the world that we are born into tells us that things are a certain way. And this week we are being invited to wake up to what's happening around us and see through what's going on. So I resonated with a lot of what I've seen from this morning, and I really wanted to highlight Lucas's poem about Galveston. I personally wrote a blog on my website, RevKC Taylor.com, about my experience, my feelings about 4th of July since June of 2020 of last year. Really sparked this healing experience within me. I feel like June of 2020 was a big wake-up call for me, and I think I'm not the only one in America who, after the events of George Floyd and the fact that each one of us was sheltering at home during that time, and we got to really see a spotlight shines on what it meant to be Black in America, and started really having a conversation as a country together about what it meant. For me, what it woke me up to were all of the image, I shouldn't say all of, but let's just say the indoctrination of this idea that whiteness is normal and regular and the right way of going about doing things. And at that time I wore my hair in dreadlocks, but the way that I wear my hair now is a way I would have never shown up in 2020. And that's an example of how I was waking up to my magnificence, that the hair that grows out of my head naturally, that I don't feel the need to tame it or shape it in a way that associates or is similar to European styles of hair texture, getting an opportunity to really embrace who I am and the hair that grows out of my head authentically. And one of the things that came up for me while I was listening to that poem about Galveston was how so many images that we receive of people of color, specifically the African American community, are messages of I would say trauma. Let's just use that word, trauma. And we know that trauma has persisted in United States history from its inception. But the stories that we often have a tendency to hear, the poems that we have a tendency to hear, are about the tragedies that the Black communities face. And we often don't get a real opportunity to lean into the triumphs. Even the triumphs are about a response to an experience of racism. It isn't just, we don't get to see a lot of stories about Blackness, which is simply a celebration of what it means to be Black in America. To know and understand that the Black experience is not, yes, there is racism, but it's not necessarily a daily experience. It's not necessarily every space that we encounter and walk into. And the impact of that trauma of racism, trauma shows up for everyone, but the experience of being Black in America and being faced with microaggressions or more overt aggressions has a tendency to shape us. We respond and react to that trauma in very, very different ways, but it does not define us, that we are not completely who we are based on our individual experiences of trauma. And I think that's true of all people, that we don't ever define any one group of people based on the collective trauma that they've experienced together. But I think what's happening is that we're moving in the direction of recognizing that these kinds of stories are important and valid and deserve to be told, but at the same time, we need other images like stories of celebration. And I'm so grateful that while I was working at Juvie Productions, Viola Davis, I love that was mentioned that she is a favorite actress, specifically because her whole vision is about authenticity, and it was about showing images that we don't often get to see on television. We only develop stories about Black joy, Black triumph, and did everything that we can to avoid those stories of tragedy, to avoid those stories of racism, because other people are doing them. And those stories, like I said, are important, but they are not the only stories that need to be heard. They are not the only stories that need to be told. So as we're having this conversation about speaking truth to circumstance, I think it's important for us to recognize the value, the importance of celebrating joy within the world and within the country that we live in. And right now, we're having a lot of conversations. I think, like as I mentioned, what was happening in 2020 is there was a big conversation about race that was ignited and important and continues to take place. But right now, I'm noticing that we're having some big conversations about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just made some very big decisions a couple of weeks ago, right before the 4th of July, as the country is preparing to celebrate. There were 3 major decisions that are igniting conversation around the country. Another big thing that's happening is, as we mentioned, you all going and representing at the Pride Parade, there are some big conversations happening around transgender rights in this country. And though many people are frustrated with the amount of anti-trans legislation around the country, I completely support and do the best that I can to support transgender people and highlight trans voices around the country. I happen to live in Oklahoma, a place where anti-trans legislature is in the process of being introduced. And the center, center where I serve as the assistant minister in United Life in Oklahoma City, we host a drag show fundraiser every year. And the intention behind that wasn't about being edgy or doing anything different. It was specifically because there was a young person under 18 at our center that was a drag performer, and there were no spaces in Oklahoma City for a young person to perform in drag. All of the spaces were 21 and up. And so we created this space so that young performers would have a platform, would have an opportunity to show their stuff, to strut their stuff, and at the same time make some money for the community. Win-win all around. So when we started that last year, I moved to Oklahoma 2 years ago. Literally, my 2-year anniversary was the 4th of July. So 2 years ago, when we started this, we had no idea that a year later, Oklahoma City or the state of Oklahoma would be proposing legislation to ban all ages drag shows. And our center has really had to look at, basically what we're doing is we had to amp up security. We experienced some vandalism for the first time in our center for advertising that all ages drag show. And we've been having some really important conversations about transgender visibility that I think are important for us to have had in our center. And so we can focus on the tragedy of the legislation being introduced, or we can focus on the triumph of having these important conversations within our own centers. At our center in particular, I think the reason that we have attracted a transgender office administrator is specifically because we have been a safe space, because we host shows like this. And the administrator is somebody who served as the MC of our second show. So it really demonstrates that our presence in the community has helped connect other young people. This is a 25-year-old transgender woman who was attracted to our center, was hired at the center, and is now taking every single Center for Spiritual Living class that we have to offer. So we can focus on the parts that aren't working well, the parts that make us uncomfortable, or we can recognize that it's very important for us to experience this discomfort together, to move through that shift. As was mentioned earlier, to bring to light what's happening in the world, to bring to light the covert racism, to bring to light all of the covert isms, so that we can talk about them, address them, and identify the right ways to make a shift within our individual communities and live our lives by example to create a shift around the world. The theme for 2023 is live out loud. And so as we are experiencing speaking truth to circumstance, as we are looking at the images that we see of people around us, what we get to do is live that experience out loud. We get to share with other people what our own healing journeys look like. Somebody once said that the only difference between a minister and a congregant is that a minister's life is public. And the reason that I shared this experience of my own awakening in June of 2020 is doing the best that I can to live my life by example, to inspire others to talk about areas and experiences where they've been challenged, where they have experienced trauma, and what that journey looked like for them. So Reverend David Robertson wrote a lot about this month, about the idea of how what we watch, what we see puts us in this trance, this state of being in a collective unconscious, of checking out of the world altogether. And he quotes Tony Robbins talking about how the challenge is not to hypnotize people, it's to get people out of the hypnosis. And what I love about being a part of the Centers for Spiritual Living is that each person who shows up in the center, each person who is interested in walking into these centers is somebody who is rejecting the idea that spirit is an old white guy in the sky that is separate from us. That each one of us are people who have shown up to identify what spirit means for ourselves, to come to our own understanding of spirit, and to live consciously from that experience, to show up in community, to be authentic, to practice unconditional love. And let's be honest, practicing unconditional love is a whole lot easier said than done. As I said, each one of us is born with our own traumas. And when those traumas are triggered, oftentimes the experience is not pretty. Our healing journey is never comfortable. Addressing and looking at the darknesses within our hearts is never comfortable. And however, it is incredibly important for us to look at these things, for them to heal, because what happens is the darkness grows and grows. And I think that's what we see, is that we see the darkness growing so big it feels insurmountable and it feels impossible to heal. But I am so grateful that each one of us do the best that we can to live consciously and understanding of the fact that spirit is bigger than all of it, that every single experience is a divine appointment. Every single experience is a holy moment, and that each one of us was born with a purpose. We don't need to know consciously what it is. We don't need to know why we are in the places that we are in, living our lives out loud. All that we need to know is that we were inspired to do so for a reason, that we are saying all of the right things in all of the right spaces, that there is no such thing as a mistake, that who we are is absolutely important and absolutely perfect. So I'm so grateful that each one of us has shown up to this experience today to receive and apply whatever it is that needs to be known, to either to live our healing journeys out loud, to look at the way that we engage in media and listen to songs and notice how we're affected by that, how we think, our own ideas of who we are have been shaped by the content that we watch. Last week, as we talked about Monsters, Inc., I chose to talk about The Little Mermaid because that's my favorite Disney movie. And there's a new Little Mermaid reboot out, and I love it. And I literally was watching the original 89 version right before I hopped on Zoom to connect with you all. And I'm saying all of this to say that for my experience, for The Little Mermaid to have been my favorite movie in 1989, and now in 2023 to be able to see a Disney princess that looks like me, that Halle Bailey is somebody I've been to multiple concerts. She's in a group with her sister that's called Chloe X Halle, and I've seen her perform live a few times. Her career is something I've just been paying attention to. So for her to have been cast as a Little Mermaid in my favorite movie has been exceptional for me. And that visibility of seeing myself and seeing how the world reacts to the fact that there is now a Black Little Mermaid demonstrates the fact that these are conversations that we have to have as a culture. And now Disney has a Black Little Mermaid walking around in the theme parks, which is something that we've never seen before. So I am so grateful to trust and know that everything that needs to have been heard was heard. I'm grateful for each way that we are inspired to live our lives out loud. And I'm grateful that we are showing up to define what God means for ourselves, to treat truth and speak truth to circumstance, and trust and know that our word is powerful, that Spirit has blessed us and ignited us and chosen us to show up at this moment in history. We were born in this time for a reason, that we live in this community, in the communities that we live in for a reason, and that we are showing up at pride parades and being who we are in celebration and practicing unconditional love for a reason. So I'm so grateful to know the shift that happens in your community because you continue to show up this way, and grateful for the shift that takes place across the planet. And I'm so grateful to be here with you all today. If anybody has any questions for me or would like to connect, I mentioned my website is revkctaylor.com, where my contact information, all things about Spirit Uncensored, that blog that I mentioned that I wrote, anything that you want to learn about me, that's the place to go. And would love to more opportunities to talk about next gen. So if there is a young person in your life that you think would benefit from attending this retreat, feel free to hit me up. Registration is open now at nextgenretreat.com. And I am so happy to be here with you all. Thank you so much. Namaste.
I'm going to try his glasses this time. I'm trying new contacts. I was just in a car accident, and I lost a lot of stuff. So my things are kind of disheveled, that kind of thing. So truth to consequence, been in a car accident, things going on, life happens, right? So who's perfect? But I'm really glad to be here, and I really missed you all. So thanks for having me back. I love singing for you all. Thank you, truly. Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you and you in me? Will you leave yourself behind if I but call your name? Will you care for cruel and kind and never be the same? Will you risk the hostile stare? Should your life attract or scare? Will you let me answer prayer in you and you in me? Will you let the blinded see if I but call your name? Will you set the prisoners free and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean and do such as this unseen and admit to what I mean to you and you in me? Will you love the you hide if I but call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you found to reshape the world around through my sight and touch and sound in you and you in me? Truth, your summons echoes pure when you but call my name, Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company I'll go, where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move in love and grow in you and you in me. Thank you.
Now it's time for the love offering blessing. Will the ushers please come forward? Please join me in saying the offertory blessing. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is. I want to say thank you to Benny and all our musicians today. I love music, and who doesn't, right? And I loved the energy of our speaker, Rev KC Taylor. I was wanting to get up and cheer. Sounds like she's really doing, or they are really doing a lot for their center as well as for the entire movement. So if you haven't been into that camp yet, I've heard great things about it. So I want to invite you to close your outer eyes again and just know the truth with me. There are many words for God, and that means that we all have a choice of what we use in terms of language to describe our experience with that same spirit, that divine mind that permeates everything, that is found everywhere and is invisible everywhere. That's the energy. That's the energy that Reverend Casey has. That's the energy that each of us has individually. It comes from that same source. And I'm just so grateful knowing this truth. I know whatever healing need you may have, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, I know that it is available and there. It is inside each one of us, where we need only say yes. We need only call upon it for it to work in our lives, no matter what is going on, or no matter what the circumstance. So I'm just so grateful, and I release this into the universal law, where I know it is done. It is done, and it is so. And so it is. Thank you.